Good afternoon, and welcome to How to Leverage Data to Design Heartfelt Creative. I'm Paul Cloley, I'm Editor-in-Chief of the Nonprofit Times, and we're thrilled to be able to hold this webinar with our good friends at Data Axle and Kevin Limongelli, who is their Executive Creative Director and has been in this industry for a very long time. We haven't done a session on creative in quite some time, so this is going to be a lot of fun to hear what's going on in the industry, and particularly from somebody who has been in the trenches for a very long time. Thank you for joining us. We will be accepting questions along the way. So on the right side of your screen, or the left side, depending on how you've got your screen set up, you'll see a little box that says questions. Please use that box to send in questions, and we'll be happy to answer as many of them as we can in this 1-hour session. Again, the Nonprofit Times is really happy to help present this Data Axle session. And Kevin, I'm going to just get out of the way, and I'm sure I'm going to have some questions along the way. So I'm just going to throw it to you and watch my signals, and I'm sure I'm going to stop you along the way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for having me. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar on how to leverage data to design heart-fueled creative. As Paul said, I'm Kevin Limongelli, and I'm Executive Creative Director at Data Axle. So I work alongside of a lot of really talented designers, copywriters, strategists, data analysts, and I have spent a majority of my career in digital marketing and fundraising. During this time, over the past 25 years or so, I've worked with about 26 different nonprofit organizations developing creative in email, direct mail, social media, display, plus some out-of-home and connected television as well. So I join you all in a big exhale as our 2022 end-of-year fundraising season has come to a close. And I look forward to inhaling everything new that 2023 has in store for us. 2022 was an awesome year. Giving Tuesday, bigger than ever for many of our friends out there. So congratulations to everybody for the effort throughout the year and for all the great work you do. Your missions are meaningful, and I just love that everybody's invested their time, energy, and careers into making the world a better place. Now, I'm fortunate to work at an agency where data is in the DNA. So today we're going to look at ways that data can inform creative, and then also ways that creative can create new opportunities to capture new data. So let's jump on in. According to several sources, including Google and Nielsen, somewhere between 50 and 70% of an ad's performance is attributed to the creative itself, which I love as a creative person. So it means that what we're doing as creatives, is helping to move the needle. And so since creative is responsible for driving performance, it needs to align with the marketing and fundraising goals. And since fundraising and marketing campaigns tend to be rich with data, there's a lot of information there that can help to feed and serve as inputs for the creative process. Now, the way that I view data in general as it relates to creative is that data helps to pave a road towards your goal, but it only paves that road part way. So it points you in the right direction towards your goal. It shows you maybe where you've been before, where others have been, what you kind of know already, but it really takes the creative process to sort of take that trajectory and really fill in the blanks and get you all the way there. So that's sort of how I look at the sort of symbiotic relationship between data and creative. So creative can really use different kinds of data in order to achieve this. And the first one that we're showing up here is existing donor data. So this is your profiles, your demographic, sometimes psychographic information, some behavioral data. And what we like to do on the creative side is to create personas, or at least utilize personas that are derived from this data set. Now, I know sometimes personas are passé. There's some marketers who think, personas aren't fun anymore. But from a creative standpoint, big part of our responsibility is to create an empathetic connection, to create empathy with our audience. And so when we're able to create a persona and really define who these individuals are as we're developing a story for them or as we're developing an experience, we're able to do so with empathy and really be able to make a connection. So for us, personas are still really, really important, and definitely recommend sharing personas with your creative teams. Now, taking this existing donor data, we can also create lookalikes that are able to sort of expand that audience into people who we know, and expanding it out into people who look a lot like them or behave a lot like them. We can also take new attributes and append that data, like human behavior data. For example, our analysis has shown that people who tend to donate frequently are also more likely to vote regularly. So when creative gets these sort of 360 insights into how people are behaving, what interests them, what motivates them, it really helps us, again, to create an empathetic link and do a better job developing our creative and our content for them. The second kind of data that we like to use as creatives is data that's collected from supporters. Some people call this zero-party data. This might be from polls or surveys. Could be a survey that was sent out via direct mail. Could be some online polls, either in social or on your website. And this helps us to provide insight into the content that people want to see. And we'll show some examples of this coming up a little bit later in the webinar, but it's great for us to get the voice directly of the audience, of the donors, of the prospects. So we're really understanding them, listening to them, and feeding back the things that are important to them. Which brings us to the third one, which is performance data, both historical and active. So things that have worked in the past, things that are maybe working or not working, are just as important as really getting to know the donors themselves, because we know people sometimes say one thing and do another, or they say they'll do something, they do something else. So really understanding actually what are they doing, which are the ads that they're clicking on, what are they actually engaging with, and what are they actually converting off of, could be different from the things that they're telling us up front or in research. So really getting that voice of the audience through their actions is really done through performance data, and that's a really important part of building a successful creative campaign. So now looking at it from the creative side, also looking at the data, but from the creative side, what can you expect from creative and how is it improved by these data insights? So first, you're able to create content and experiences that are more relevant to your donors. And that's important. We know that the more relevant we are to our donors, the more likely they are to support us, to share our mission, and to stay with us longer term. So a lot of importance there surrounding the relevance with your audience. And second, you can also change or challenge assumptions. A lot of times we think we know the way that we're being perceived in market, or the way that our donors are acting or thinking. Sometimes we have somebody who's in the organization who's been there a while and kind of has done a lot, has seen a lot, has tested things, and brings those things to the table. But data can lead creative into new territories. So exploring new creative may lead to new data and new insight. So new findings that we're able to use in the future. You can also, third one here, take risks and innovate. So as data leads us into those new territories, there's going to be new opportunities for experimenting. We're going to be challenging some of the best practices along the way. So there's a door that opens when you introduce data into the creative process. A little bit about feeding the testing machine, and our good friend Cookie Monster here to help illustrate. As we push into data-driven creative, we have some great tools at our disposal, like machine learning, that helps us with a lot of the analysis within digital platforms, like what's working, helping to select, kind of automating a lot of the A/B testing, going into multivariate testing, things like that. So creatives need to be structured, but not overly formulaic when it comes to creating the creative assets. So there's a place for being methodical, right? So coming up with the perfect ad or the perfect direct mail piece, or even if you're working on a website, there's a lot of principle and theory and work that goes into revisions and getting it just right before you launched. But in digital media, it's not just about getting the ad right, it's really about getting variety in there. It's not so much about obtaining that control and rather you should focus more on putting a variety and a constant flow of new ideas. A lot of times, again, we want to be in there and creating that sort of artisanal perfect ad, but really data has shown us through extensive testing that seldom does that perfect ad hold up against an ongoing series of optimization and new ideas being fed into the system. So there's a balance. That's not to say that we should just throw random things into the machine and let Cookie Monster sort it out for us, but we should be mindful of the decisions that we're making in creative. So when it comes time, when it gets kicked back from those systems and goes, this one worked and this one didn't, we're not left looking at a bunch of ads, at dozens of ads or hundreds of ads and being asked, okay, creative guy, why did some work and why didn't others? And that kind of puts us in a position where you're like, I don't know, maybe this one has 2 animals, this one has 1, maybe that's what people like. So understanding up front, what is your hypothesis? Why are you creating whatever it is you're creating? Why is it different from the other ads? But then doing that, sort of en masse and getting a lot of volume in those machines. So when they kick them out and they say, these are the ones that worked, you understand why and what your idea was going into that optimization process.
Yeah, Kevin, I got a question for you.
Sure.
I've been watching a lot of TV lately, and I'm online a lot. And there's one particular nonprofit, not a Data Axle client, thankfully,
Okay.
who is everywhere. I mean, I'm just sick of seeing this organization's ads. Is there a standard number of ads you can run in Facebook? A set of ads. What's the best number of different scenarios that they should be doing? Because I got to tell you, this one organization is using the same ad, and I am sick of it.
Right. I don't know, maybe that's the world's greatest ad. Maybe I'm wrong, but Facebook recommends having 3 to 5 ads in an ad set. And that's consistent with our experience. We have some ad sets out there right now that are that have even more, but 3 to 5 seems to be a good number for the algorithm to be able to understand the differences in performance between them, but not have so many ads that it has trouble really coming up or calculating with the true what the true winner is. Thanks, Paul. Onto channel considerations. The variety of channels that are available today give us a lot of data to inform the creative process. Now, we've moved beyond the age of the create once, publish everywhere model, right? Where you would kind of create the great little ad and then how many different channels can we shoot that out into? Now we know that each channel, both offline and online, has its nuances, and really understanding how our audiences interact with those channels and what formats and other creative opportunities are available in those channels are available is really important. So for example, CTV, connected television, love that channel. That media format has served us really well over the past year. And it's great for those mid to upper level awareness and engagement campaigns. While direct mail and email and digital ads we'll see here all throughout the journey, all throughout the donor journey or this funnel. The difference between them is that those we still can't use the same email, the same ad at each step in that donor journey. We really need to adapt the messaging, change the call to action, change the story along the way, and really draw our donors and our prospects further in. Most importantly, though, is that the channels need to work together, really building on each other, the fact that each other's presence, and creating a more holistic experience along the way. So this is the difference between when we talk about being omnichannel and just having multiple channels in market. So omnichannel really meaning that these channels are interacting, that as somebody goes from one channel to another, or even as they continue throughout their journey, that we're building on their understanding of our mission, of the need. And so throughout their journey, they're learning more and more about us as an organization and everything that we stand for, where their donation's going to go, what kind of programs we offer. But at the same time, we're also learning more and more about them, about the audience, who they are, and what's capturing their attention and motivating them. So to help illustrate, throughout this webinar, we'll be using a fictional nonprofit organization that we came up with called HODA, and that stands for the Humans of Data Axle, but we'll just refer to it as HODA from here forward. And just a little bit of a background on HODA. It's an international humanitarian relief organization working in developing countries aimed at supporting and empowering women and children. And so this is sort of our backdrop. This is what creative sort of comes into, through this scenario. The primary fundraising message is access to clean and safe water. Our visuals, our image library, everything tends to be focused on children within the regions. Our standard donation form ask array is $15, $30, $50, $100. Our ad program is focused largely on lead generation, and our email prospecting message is focused largely on storytelling. So that's our backdrop on HODA, and you'll sort of see how we kind of build an ad on that as we move forward. So first is that we can supplement and in some case challenge the status quo or the creative brief with some from insights from the data itself. So in our first quadrant here, we have our science on the left, our data, and then our art or our creative on the right-hand side. So in looking at, let's say, our Google Analytics, we're seeing that our most popular page on the website is actually education. And it may be that that's the page that's getting the most visits, or maybe it's getting a lot of engagement, a lot of time on page, or maybe it's a page that gets a lot of people who are going directly from that content onto the donation form. So it's piqued our interest. It's popped here in our analytics research. Second, looking at our keywords, we see a lot of branded terms here: HODA, HODA Relief, HODA Waterworks. And we've also sent out a survey, maybe this was a digital survey on our website or through email, that is asking our donors some of their top priorities. And that survey has come back and has indicated that education, health, and equality are the three things that our audience is telling us that they are that are important to them. So from the art side, from the creative side, this tells us that we have an opportunity to start broadening our messaging and our imagery to include things like education and some of the other programs and themes that we're seeing here popping in some of our analysis. This allows us to explore ways to communicate also through graphics and animation. So just because we are used to talking about access to clean water doesn't mean that we just plug in education and that works. There might be other ways that we need to tell that story, other themes within that we need to illustrate or explain. So it gives creative, some ideas on some new content to create given that information. Our second tier here, our average online gift is $57, which we feel like is on the low side. So how can creative help to maybe increase our average gift? One is testing our ask arrays themselves, the actual dollar amounts that are in our ask arrays, maybe doing like a high to low test or something like that. Also, we can explore pre-selected gift amounts on our donation form, highlighting them or doing a little arrow that says most people give this amount, or developing gift handles. So when we're taking that $70 and saying $70 will equip 3 kids with a backpack full of books, whatever that is, drawing out that sort of tangible, this is what your donation gives, is something that creative likes to, one, develop here for the ask array, but also that's something that we'll end up using in the messaging as well because it's really tangible and helps to motivate people. In our third tier here, our response rates from email are at 0.03%, and then our digital advertising programs, Facebook's at 0.65%, and our banner ads at 0.07% click-through rate. And so this shows us that while we're kind of trying to get people into email and then convert them into email, we might be able to accelerate some of these gifts by really leaning into the digital ads as well. And so finding new ways, exploring some of the digital formats, how can we get more donations directly through some of those digital channels, and also taking some inspiration from not only from other nonprofit organizations, but other industries, other businesses that are outside the category. For example, if you have like a gift catalog, there are plenty of retailers out there who are heavily using carousels in Facebook. So that's sort of panels that you can flip through. We've seen carousels work in different ways in nonprofit as well as in commercial, but it's just a great way to take some of those cues from things that are being done outside the category and go, okay, there's other formats here that other than just our standard ads that we'll be able to utilize in order to experiment and drive more, for digital fundraising through those channels. And then finally, we see that a large concentration of our high-level donors are coming through the Pacific and Southwest regions. Knowing that there's sort of a geo-specific, nuance there, that people who are in those regions are giving higher dollar amounts, that gives us the idea to maybe tailor some of our ads where we're able to geo-target. That could be in direct mail, that could also be digitally geo-targeting them, and putting out a different offer, maybe talking to them a little bit a different way and having a different ask there in order to take advantage of the fact that there's a higher propensity to give larger gifts coming from those territories. So about the creative process itself, and then in a moment we'll get into some more pretty pictures. We really want to create a process that is built end to end for using data inputs. So this is what we recommend with your own teams, with any of the teams that you're working along with, is really first starting with that value proposition. And this is really about getting to know your audience, because we see the value proposition as, if we're picturing it as like a Venn diagram, one side is your organization and everything it stands for and all the things that you do, everything that sort of makes up your mission and your programs. And then the other circle is your audience and everything that they care about, all things that that motivates them. And so that intersection between what you do, what you actually do, and what people actually care about is this zone that creative needs to focus on. It needs to be able to extract and articulate a message that fits in that area. And then from that, they're able to then go on and create multiple campaigns, multiple messages, tailor for different audiences, but should all come from this place of really a data-defined value proposition. Next is flexible design. So whether this is your emails or your videos, when we start to introduce data into the process, we need variations. We need variations for different audiences. We need variations for testing. And so the last thing we want for creatives is to have to stare at a blank canvas every time and figure out how to make something new. So ensuring that you have a flexible design system that's ready to go, that's easy to adapt into different channels, into different audiences, is the work that should be done up front. Similarly, raw materials. Make sure that your creative team has access not only to, if they're going into social, not only to the things that you've done in social before, but really have them do an audit of offline materials, of what's it sitting in organic social or out on your YouTube channel. So really understanding what they have available as raw materials, because creatives are going to want to connect the dots. There's a catalyst, which is the data that drives a new insight, and then there's what they output. And if they're able to more quickly connect the dots between the idea and something that exists, or the catalyst of an idea that exists, something that can be repurposed or remixed, understanding their entire spectrum of raw materials there is going to help that work a whole lot better. And then finally, performance feedback. This is what a lot of it is about. It's making sure that the creative team understands what is, how things are performing, what they're creating is, how it's coming through in click-through rates or engagement rates, whatever those things are. Don't wait until a quarterly business review or something to get creative involved. Make them part of the loop and part of that constant performance feedback. And of course, there are some things that we don't necessarily need data to tell us. And so these are our 4 core storytelling principles that are foundational and really proven themselves time and time again. First, the donor is the hero, making sure that we're not crediting our organization or whatever as changing the world, as saving a life. It's really the donor and their generosity and their positive energy that is helping to make change. Second, the emotional gut check. We know that giving is an emotional and an emotionally triggered activity. So getting out a lot of the rationality, getting out a lot of the numbers, and really making sure that we're making that human connection and using emotion in order to motivate people. Third, our theory of change, which is ensuring that if you come to the table, if you give us your donation, your time, your energy, that it's not just going to be a drop in the bucket. There's actual, real, attainable change here. You're going to make a change in the life of an individual or of an animal or of a community, whatever it is. Show that that change is actually attainable. And finally, sense of urgency. There's a lot out there to distract us, to distract our donors and our prospects. So getting them while they're motivated, while they're sort of feeling the emotion, while they're understanding us, and not letting them put this off until later, just encouraging them to take action right now when we need it most. So now we'll go into a little bit of a walkthrough of some of the channels and some of the ways that data can inform creative using HODA as our backdrop. Before I jump in, Paul, is there anything coming in that I need to address? Are we good to move forward?
Well, there are a couple of things, and this may not be appropriate, and you may be talking about it a little bit as you're getting into the acquisition mode. Nonprofit fundraisers are often pinching themselves when they get 1% on direct mail on acquisition. You showed a number before of 0.65 for acquisition on a digital occurrence. Can those be, are those equivalent? Is there some way of matching a digital with a mail response? Or is that, are they completely, so completely different channels that you shouldn't try to mix and match?
So I'm not sure what the exchange rate there is between, I believe that was maybe the Facebook that we had the 0.65.
Right.
So I'm not sure exactly how that necessarily equates there, but certainly there are different expectations depending on the channel. There's also a different, different investment needed per channel, different return on ad spend. So I'd say that does vary significantly depending on the channel.
And one more thing about response, and you were talking about the different number of Facebook or other ads that you're going to have up. If most of the fundraisers are continuously monitoring their campaigns, how often should they change things up depending on the data? For example, if a call to action button isn't really doing well, should you give it 30 days, 60 days more? What's the line between leaning on data and not giving a tactic enough time to show results?
Yeah, so I've seen this a few different ways. Sometimes there is like a 60-day refresh or whatever, but as much as we love testing and putting new things in market and challenging the idea of controls, also if there is an asset that's working, and as long as it's still relevant, as long as it's, it doesn't say there's a match when there's not a match, we recommend keeping that in as long as it's performing and as long as it's relevant. But otherwise, on a creative side, we're usually planning to refresh a lot of the ads between 45 and 60 days.
Great.
Cool. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about HODA. So first, let's start with display ads. We have several ways that we can version our ads depending on or based on the data itself. And first is by audience. So tailor where they are in the donor journey. That's a great way. Like right here, we're seeing we just have learn more, which is, indicates that we're probably more upper funnel. We're just trying to educate an audience and invite them over to learn more about HODA and the things that we're doing. We can also tailor it by, existing donors versus prospects. And existing donors, you might be looking for an additional gift. You may be looking to upgrade them to a sustainer, where our new donors, our new donor prospects, we're probably doing something similar to what we're seeing here. There's also tailoring our ads by performance or what we think is going to work. So one that we've run numerous times is really static versus animated. And conventional wisdom says that animation beats static because it captures more attention. It allows you to put in more messaging. In reality, it's not necessarily the case. I'm not saying animation doesn't work. I'm just saying it is something that needs to be tested because it doesn't always beat out the static counterpart. And then third, by supporter interest. So when we start to get those insights, when we're starting to see what are people actually engaging with and converting off of, regardless of the channel, or in this case, we did see that there was a lot of propensity for interest in education. That gives us the idea here to introduce an education-focused ad. Now, in this one, we've just changed out the picture from the clean water image on the left to the education-focused one on the right. But a simple change like this could certainly help to drive performance. Also in display is an opportunity to collect quick maps. Now, this isn't something that's usually available just right out of the box, but if you've planned ahead and you have a creative team and a media team who is planning for this, you can actually capture quick maps and seeing where people are clicking on the banners themselves. Now, banners are usually not on your own website; they're out on CNN or whatever, other websites that are out there. So these heat maps help us to understand how people are actually, what they're drawn to within the ads themselves. So in this case, we see our ad on the left, that's what it looks like normally. Then in the middle, we have a click map where a lot of people are clicking on the logo, they're clicking on the our headline here, they're also clicking on the image of the person, in this case, the little girl. And this is really representative of a lot of what we have seen in market with some of our clients and some of our partners. And so this is given the idea to, how important is that donate now button? Was there a question, Paul?
Yeah, I've got one. The heat map.
Yeah.
So many tablet versus desktop versus phone. So many different ways of interacting with this ad online, this digital ad. Can you map the difference between somebody touching a screen and clicking on a screen?
Usually, yeah. Usually, with heat map software for quick maps, usually it's capturing wherever that point of contact is, whether that's a mouse click or a finger tap. So yeah, and really the theory or hypothesis on the creative side is that they're clicking on the thing that's maybe drawing their attention. We would normally think that if we design an ad with a button in it, that people are going to click the button. Turns out they don't necessarily. And so when we've tested actually removing the button, we've seen either it hasn't made a difference in their performance, or in some cases actually improved performance. So we like the idea that if somebody's only taking a fraction of a second or a couple seconds to view our ads, that their attention is going to go to the things that we want them to take away with them. If they're not going to click, we want them to see our logo, we want them to see an image that represents our mission, we want them to see a headline, and knowing that less than 1% of people or less than 1% click-through rate is usually what we get on banner ads. We need to make sure that what people are taking away is meaningful. So removing something, a distraction like a donate now button that people aren't even clicking, may actually prove to be the better version in the long run.
Interesting.
Yeah. Social ads also provide a lot of flexibility when it comes to creative. Now, data comes from the platforms themselves. So what is the click-through rate, the engagement rate, the video completion rate? But we can also derive insights, another form of data, from the comments themselves. And this is something that we've started doing more of recently, is reading those comments. And we've actually been able to adjust some of the ads based on what people have said in the comments, is because, again, we're creating that empathy. Creatives need to connect with the audience and understand how what they're creating is being interpreted through their audience eyes. So reading those comments could lead really to new insights, and you may not be, they may be seeing something that you're not, or they may be misinterpreting something. So making sure that creative gets insight not only to the performance in social, but to what some of those comments are saying. We've also seen in social that really variety, again, counts. So a mix of formats works better than just trying to figure out the one format that works best for you. So trying out different videos, statics, carousels, like I mentioned before, instant experience, which also known as canvas ads, having a mix of different formats in there tends to outperform just leaning into one. There's a lot of opportunities as well within social for testing. So the visuals, so photos versus infographics. If you do have a video, different video lengths long versus short. There's no standard one always wins there. Also the copy and the call to action. So here, very simple experiment. We're showing one that we've conducted recently where the call to action, that's our button in the lower right, has moved from donate now to learn more. So we want the person to donate. Our headline on the first one is your support can change a life, donate now. That's assuming that people are ready to donate now, that they've watched our other ads, they've interacted with our website, and they're ready to open their wallets. Where our second one here is a bit of a softer call to action. We've moved that donation language over to the headline. It says your donation can change a life, learn more. And this is inviting them over. It's a much softer, it's less committal, but it's also more of a commitment on our side to pay that off and not just go, oh, cool, you're here, what's your credit card number, but actually provide a little bit more information on the donation form about the mission, about where your donation goes, et cetera. So this is something that we're experimenting with now. Super simple, and it doesn't require a heavy lift. One format that we do love, and we're not, yeah.
So we do have a question. For this ad, does that click go straight to a donation page? Do people think they're going to a page for more information?
So yeah, so that's a great question. So in this case, we do have a like an intermittent page that's designed to be a landing page that drives to donation, and that's where we're sort of giving more information about where your donation goes, more information about the mission, more content. But it's also something that we would run going to directly to a donation form if that form has enough content. A lot of forms have kind of gone to a really streamlined format, which is great for the donate nows and when we're doing things like Giving Tuesday. But in general, we do find that, especially in social, when we're sending somebody, even when we're sending them to a donation form, they tend to expect more information on there than just their, the fields to fill out their name and credit card.
And there's a follow-up. Is there a higher propensity to click on logos and inanimate objects than in faces or people generally?
I would say, so yes, when we're showing people, no, when we're showing animals. People like to click on animals. They like to touch the furry heads or whatever. But I would say in general, yeah, logos and headlines tend to get more interaction than the visuals themselves, the graphic or the photo of the person or whatever it is. So here we are on poll ads. So again, I'm not seeing a lot of organizations currently using this. It's basically a video on top. So the woman kissing the kids would be a video, and then a multiple choice question below that, sort of a to answer question. It's a great way to gather data about your audience while engaging with them. So they're there, they're watching the video, we're asking them a question. In this case, it says, what is a bigger challenge to girls? Is it access to education? Is it lack of healthcare? And so we're getting them to engage. When they click, we can, serve them up different language depending on what they've selected. Sometimes you can do it sort of, trivia style or more preference. So there's things that we can learn from the audience, like what do they think is more important, or what do they, if given the chance, what would they do? And it gives us another opportunity, one, to engage. It's really the highest engagement ad type that we tend to see in Facebook when we run the poll ads, but it also gives us feedback, gives it directly to the creative team as to how people are interpreting our message, what's important to them, in some case dispelling misconceptions. So totally love this format. Sorry, quick time check. Email also continues to be a critical channel throughout our fundraising programs. Our audience here is would be prospects that we brought in via the ad program that we've been showing. And what we've done here is we're asking the audience, we're asking our email recipients within their welcome series, what's important to them. So in the first one, we're asking, which of the programs that we're currently running through HODA do they think are most important? And in this case, they have chosen maternal and child health. So what we're able to do with that is now further down the welcome stream, we're able to put in more content that's specific to that selection. And then later on, as we're seeing the one on the right-hand side, we're able to serve that preference back to them in the form of an appeal. So in this case, the person has selected maternal and childcare as their sort of motivation for being involved with HODA. And then on the right-hand side, we said, okay, well, here's our maternal and child health related appeal. All of our gift handles here are related to maternal care. And so that's just another way of taking that sort of zero-party data, that understanding what our audience wants, but then giving them a feedback loop, making sure that we're taking the things that they're telling us and delivering it back to them. Timing is also important in something like this. We've seen that donors are more likely to give a second gift within 90 days of their first gift, or within, around their 12-month anniversary. So on the right-hand side here, we're also, delivering this, within that 90-day window, making sure that we're taking advantage of that time period. A few other ways we could use data within the email itself. One, like we showed on the last one, conducting a survey that doesn't just happen to be done in the welcome series. This can be done upfront, but then added onto. We could ask people, if their priorities have changed. The world has changed, so maybe they have a different set of priorities, or we can add on to it throughout their journey and throughout their time in interacting with us here at HODA. And the second one, we can also take some softer asks, like a pledge, downloading a report, registering for a webinar, to see what other topics are interesting them, keeping them engaged, but also drawing them into new content types and understanding more about our audience that way. And then on the third one here, we have an impact report. This one we're delivering within that 1 year period. So again, we're hitting that period where they have a higher propensity to give another gift, but we're also delivering back all the things we've learned over the year, the things that are important to them, putting it in a more of a visual format, kind of giving them a little bit of an adventure that we've been on over the course of the past year. So finding those ways to gather that information and then delivering it back to the audience as a payoff. All roads lead to the website in digital, or pretty much, right? Our emails, our ads, a lot of the things we're putting out here are landing people on the website itself. And the site can continue to tailor the experience for them. Now, I'm not talking about, the big fancy, back-end systems that are going to deliver this, but at least having a sense of how are our audiences reacting differently to different content. So in this case, we have the widget on top. Maybe this is a pop-up, or it's just a widget like on the homepage when somebody comes there asking them to give their donation. That can change. In this case, the one on the bottom is more specific to education. So any of our education-based pieces, we can be reflecting the educational theme, knowing that there's a distinct audience there who has a high propensity to give specifically for education. On to the donation form, and here we're showing another kind of heat map. When we're looking for opportunities for our site to work harder, so global elements are, some of our key calls to actions, our donation form itself, as shown here. We can use some predictive data to make design decisions. So here we have another heat map, but this one, instead of being a click map, which we could also use something like Crazy Egg to show where people are actually clicking, this is one we're using earlier in the design process as predictive eye tracking. So this is using artificial intelligence to determine, based on your design, where people's attention is going to go. So here we've created a few style adjustments to the headline and to the ask array in order to try to draw more attention to the ask array itself. We've got our gift handles in there and everything. And in this case, just these simple style adjustments have increased our attention on the gift array from 29% on the left up to 35% on the right. So if our hypothesis there is that if people see our gift array, if they're seeing these dollar handles, they're going to be more likely to give a gift. This is showing us that we have in fact achieved that in drawing more attention to those elements before we've even finished our design, coded, or deployed this page. So a tool like this can be used to make decisions like this during the design phase, to better understand why a page is performing the way it is. So you can put an existing page in and go, oh, we have a distracting element up in the corner, let's get rid of that. Or just to help develop new ideas and hypotheses to test. So it's just another great tool that I feel is really specific to creative that really helps to drive to the design and creative process. Paul?
Yeah, we do have one. Regarding asking for gifts within 90 days of the last gift, what's your experience here with donor fatigue and donor reaction to a quick ask?
So I wouldn't do it right away. It's more like I would get it closer to that 90-day time frame. Not try to pile in all your second give asks within those first 90 days. I work alongside our strategists who have sort of calculated this out, but it seems that getting sort of closer to that 90 days, maybe within the 60 to 90 or so. I wouldn't ask them for an immediate gift right after they've given the first one, but definitely want to be sensitive to donor fatigue. But the data is showing that that second gift can come within that 90 days. And of course, we can tailor the forms themselves to the journeys and the promotions that have driven them there. So those along our clean water journey, we've driven them to our water form on the left, and those along the education journey, we can drive to our education form on the right. And the job's really not done there. Since we know that these are kind of distinct audiences, they have distinct preferences, we can then go on and test and end up, like in this case, with different gift handles, with different even gift amounts tested in for the different versions. So understanding those nuances, we don't have to test different versions for every audience out there, but really identifying those ones with a high propensity to give and to act differently than the other. Creative can really come in and help to tailor those experiences and identify these opportunities. Quick note or final note on testing itself. One, we want to make sure that we're testing throughout the campaign and at all stages of the donor journey, not just up front or not just when things are getting contentious, but actually make it part of the entire process. Two, we want to ensure that we're able to collect performance data and consider what the creative team is going to be able to use. So just like we put in, the pixels and the floodlights and everything for social ads, we want to make sure that we understand upfront what kind of data is going to be capturable, like the heat maps that we showed in the display ads, and make sure that that's done upfront because you really can't go back and capture that data after the fact. And the third, we want to continually split test the design and messaging. Remember to feed the machines, feed Cookie Monster, especially when we have some of that auto optimization, and make sure that we have the volume of creative output there. So really the testing process should be one big data-driven creative adventure.
When you say split testing, is there any tie-ins with direct mail at this point where we should be tying, or they should be tying the digital in with their direct mail?
As far as connecting the tactics that we're using here along with the direct mail channel?
Yeah, the question simply says any other tie-ins with direct mail.
So I would say, as we've seen, we're primarily talking digital here for digital fundraising, and that's where a lot of the tools and data is coming from. I will say that in my experience, we work closely, our digital team works very closely and is integrated with our direct mail team. So there are shared learnings, from channel to channel, and they shouldn't be siloed. So testing a lot of these smaller things is a lot harder in direct mail. It takes longer, it's more expensive. So I would recommend if there are, more of these findings that are coming out of digital, that they immediately get shared with direct mail, and they may provide some new opportunities for enhancing the direct mail piece.
Okay.
And finally here on a summary, number one, include the creative team up front when identifying who your donors are and what motivates them. So this is the data that's going to be meaningful to creating that empathetic link that we've been talking about that helps your writers and your designers really get inside your donor's head. Second, ensure you're planning for a 360-degree omni-channel approach for targeting your audience. This broadens the creative canvas and allows for richer storytelling and more immersive donor journey. And then third, keep creative in the performance data feedback loop. Because sometimes a surprising insight is there that creatives will capture that maybe isn't as evident. So keeping creative in that loop and understanding how the work that we're creating is performing in market is going to lead to new ideas.
All right, there are a couple of questions here.
All right.
Since we're talking digital, there's been some controversy lately with regard to some digital platforms, whether it be Twitter, whether it be TikTok. Are you suggesting people continue to use those channels? Should they use them in moderation? Should they be upping them? What are you telling people when they say, do I really want to use TikTok right now, or do I really want to use Twitter right now?
Yeah, that's probably a bigger question than a creative question right now. I mean, we have done some, I've been with teams who've done some experimenting in TikTok and Twitter. I'd say that really that's up to you and your organization and your partners to sort of navigate that. From a creative standpoint, we love, that there are new formats, that there are new channels, and we love to experiment and learn with them. But we would never want to do so at the expense of brand equity or the mission, or doing something just to try to make a dollar. So
another question we have here, we're always tracking lifetime value of a donor for the various channels that comes through. Is the lifetime value of a donor more or less when it's gotten through a digital channel than it's, say, direct mail or TV or CTV?
I'd say I don't have that data point as to which one is greater, but we know that there are some people who have a propensity to convert in certain channels like direct mail, and there are some that will not convert in direct mail and they will convert digitally. So I would rather have those donors, even if they ended up being lower value, than not having them. So I'd say if they're out there, use the channels to go grab them.
I'm not sure I understand this question, but I'm gonna from one of our registrants, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. How long does the overall creative improvement last for a donor? Do you end up raising more dollars per ad but the life expectancy of a donor is no different, or even is it less? So lifetime, how long do you keep a digital donor versus how long you keep another type of donor?
Yeah, so I'd say similar to the last one, not sure exactly where that nets out.
Okay.
I don't think I totally understood the question, though.
Yeah, we've got one here. Investing in these strategies requires time and resources. Are there tangible results or metrics people can present to their leadership to show that using data to inform creative will pay off? Are there like 5 or 6 absolutely specific, here, Mr. Board Chairman, you need to think about this?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, and since it is data driven, when we talk about that third data type being performance, that's largely where we're talking about, is being able to point back at the things that are actually working. And once we know, what we've introduced via the creative process and what kind of gains that's created, that's exactly what would end up going back to a decision maker like that to continue to invest in data-driven creative. And I would say that a lot of this isn't about necessarily introducing a new tool or a new data stream or anything. It's really about addressing the process and inviting creative in, having a seat at the table, because we know that creative can drive performance. And by arming creatives with data, they're only going to be able to drive more of that performance.
All right, I think that's all the questions that our registrants and people listening in have. I want to thank Kevin and the folks at Data Axle for putting this webinar together. everybody who has registered for this webinar will receive an email afterwards giving you a link to the webinar so you can see it again. And it will be available, I'm assuming, on it'll be available on our website. I'm assuming it'll be also available on the Data Axle site, and you'll get emails for that. Again, and if you're interested, go to the nonprofittimes.com. We've got news and features every day. We're breaking stories all the time with regard to fundraising and every other aspect of the nonprofit sector. So please go to the nonprofittimes.com and subscribe to the Nonprofit Times. Thank you for being part of this webinar today. Kevin, thank you very much. And we'll
Thank
see
you,
you next
Paul.
time.
Thanks, everyone.